So that's great. So why don't we start with the approval of the minutes of November 25th, 2019?
Motion to approve as submitted.
A second?
Second.
All right. Okay, and any comments, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstain? So 5-0-0. No public participation? Two. Okay, we gave him enough time. Moving right on to Director of Parks and Recreation report.
Thank you. Paul, I'm going to share a microphone with you tonight.
No, it's yours.
Oh, thank you.
Put it in on the scene.
You guys all heard
That'll be a
that.
first.
Paul said he's not saying anything. Thank you. Just quickly, on Monday night, the night of our last meeting, the 25th, we had a report of some damage at Regan Park on the playground and the surface. Someone had smashed a pumpkin very nicely for us all over the equipment. That was cleaned up. And we also, looks like they took a stick and poked through a soft area, which was a washout. It looks like the area underneath the pour-in-place surface washed out. This is an area that we have repaired right after the park opened. Looks like something gave way under there. Not a big hole, maybe a foot altogether, maybe 4 inches, 5 inches deep, but now we have a cone in it, and we will get it addressed in the spring. Once the temperatures warm up, we'll fill it now, but they'll be able to do a new patch on it at some point in the spring. And then we're just going to have to keep our eye on it. I don't know. We never had washout problems underneath the surface that was there before. And we've compacted the surface and put gravel in, and I'm not really sure why that area is washing out. But before they come to repair it, they'll have to cut out a bigger piece so we can get a better look inside again and see if it's coming, something migrating underneath. Water or what, but we'll keep our eye on it. We had
Do you want to
today.
have someone stay overnight just to make sure it's not an animal and just,
No,
Kinda
I
like
know it is not
Caddyshack?
an animal. They would have eaten the pumpkin that was stuffed in it to get back out, so I knew that wasn't an animal.
okay. You don't have to put anyone there.
No. It'd be a long winter there. So, Parks and Recreation Maintenance, Central Maintenance, for those of you who weren't able to make it today, we had a great groundbreaking ceremony over at 10 Great Meadow Road, which is the site of the new Parks and Recreation Maintenance Garage, and we will be sharing that land with the Central Maintenance. It was very nice groundbreaking today. Commissioner Norden said a few words, which was really nice. We had some of the selectmen on hand, as well as the town administrator or town administrator and head of DPW, John Sanchez, and then members of the building committee and Weston and Sampson, our architects. So they have a memorandum of agreement letter has gone out, and they're working on finalizing the contract. The idea is that we wanted to remind people that the project is going forward, is happening, have a little groundbreaking ceremony, and get the project moving, I think, right after the first of the year. So thank you guys for attending today and for supporting the project through all of its stages. I think we started this maybe 4 years ago, looking at different sites, and we're able to narrow it down and have what we feel is a really good site. Will give us room to grow into the future.
Dave, you want to say anything? You were really well spoken at the groundbreaking.
Well,
I was
thank you.
really impressed.
I would just thank God it's finally come to fruition. Like I think John Sanchez said, I think 13 years. You were probably on the commission when it first got spoken about. So to finally have it be groundbreaking, hopefully by the first of the year, is great news. It's going to be a beautiful building, and our staff should be very happy once it's done, but you know, obviously it's gonna take a little while, but, I'd like to thank all the, commissioners for getting this, approved. Brendan, for all your work that you've done on the design process that was done. I didn't in my, talk this morning, I would just like to thank town meeting who approved the project, and it's a two-phase project, and it's going to be not only for the rec and central maintenance, but for the DPW department. Everyone was there today, and it was it's glad to finally get this long overdue building started.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else? Kevin? Okay. Great. You'll be looking forward to it.
So the next thing I have is, I had talked previously at our meeting in November about the capital plan. We met with both the program division and the maintenance division, and looked at our capital plan and made some updates to it. And we were able to do, you know, take care of a good portion of our projects last year, and some that we didn't have approved last year to move forward with, were added back on the list for this year. But I did send that out. Hope everyone had a chance to look at it. We don't have to go through it item for item tonight, but I did, you know, if there's any questions, I would entertain those. But I'd also like to, a couple of years ago, we did a, you know, an informational session where we all got together and went through the warrant articles, and I'd like to, I thought that was beneficial. If people are interested in doing that again, we can have, you know, not at one of our meetings, but schedule another meeting, maybe during the day, and go through them. If there's any further questions, we can try to hash those out. We did have a couple of quotes that we were waiting on. One came in today, just on some final pricing. So some of these figures are estimated. They're pretty close, but estimated costs. But like I said, we did get one in today, and we have, I think, there's another one to come in the next week, hopefully this week. So that was it. Oh, the last thing, we had talked about the Boy Scout troop coming to one of our meetings. Our dates don't line up with availability for the Boy Scouts for their communication badge, so unless that changes and they haven't gotten it into the new year, maybe they'll come to a January meeting. But that is all I have for now.
Okay. Questions for Brendan? You guys are so polite.
Just real quick on the Regan Park, is that the same spot where we had the incident, the hole before?
Yes, so, and we packed it really well before and compacted it. So that's what leads me to believe something further down, and it's kind of working its way through. So the company that did it will, you know, the warranty on it is up, obviously, you know, as far as replacement for that. It's been over a year, but we didn't have any signs of it this summer. I think it was literally that night was brought to our attention, so we were able to get down there. We'll just cut a larger spot and get a better view of it. They'll come and patch it once the weather has to be above 55 for 3 straight days. Today, tomorrow, and then we don't have good luck on Wednesday. Maybe a little snow, but you know, when it gets warmer in the spring or early summer, they'll be able to patch it.
Okay.
But yes, you know, having someone look at it, you know, we can have the contractor who did the site work. I'll have him come out and take a look and see if he can see anything, because really the area was compacted. It's inside. It's framed inside 2x16s, I think, or 12s, 2x12s.
It's
So
weird that it's got to be something way deep.
right,
Probably.
right, and like we said, when it was sand, there wasn't any, you know, depressions or sinkholes in it. So, and we really just scraped the sand out of there and then compacted, you know, built the surface back up. So,
Okay, when we talked about the 10-year capital plan, I didn't see any field renovation for behind the rec building.
Irrigation systems?
Yeah, irrigation, is that something that we can add to the list at some point?
Yeah, I know that is something
Or
that
is that
you and I
something-
discussed, but something that, you know, Rich and I have discussed as well. Snow shouldn't be a factor. Someone should be able to come out. We have where the trunk line is as well. So we'll try to get some work done on that before we sit down, and we'll have an idea on what it would cost out there. I'm not, you know more of the trunk line that goes out there
Yep.
than I don't know what it is, what size.
It's a 2-inch line from the parking lot out to the field. So
Okay.
That's plenty, that's gonna be plenty of volume for that area.
Okay,
So it's just a matter of design work. You want to, you want to get the baseball field, it has to be mapped out and designed with baseball field irrigation, and then we want to still cover the rest of the playing areas, so that's it.
okay,
But
it's
as
just,
far as having a source of water is fine. We'll go with the battery-operated clock timers, which we have a few of those already in place on other locations where we don't have power sources. So,
oh, well, we might have power in the future up there.
Yeah.
When they put the streetlights on and so forth. Yeah, and the other question is, are we, of the 2021 requests, are we really looking for the treehouse? Or is that just,
Nope.
Are we gonna work on it and-
Yes, it's going to be through the trust. We've had, in my discussions with them as we work through the request for next year, that was one of the items. They had expressed an interest 2 years ago, 3, maybe. And then, you know, we're at a point where we need to push again for it. It's something that Josh Simons is definitely interested. He actually gave us the contractor, so that's, you know, our estimate is through that contractor. It's accessible to get up to it. It'd just be an added program space for us, outdoor teaching with, you know, what do you call it, 3-season indoor, 2+ season, with some, I don't want to call them walls.
They're like drop down burlap panels.
Yeah, like a
like
a
Yeti?
yurt.
Yes.
Yurt.
Yeah,
Yeti.
is that what it is, a yurt?
To
Right.
be able to leave them open if we're not using it for programming space, so people can go up there and enjoy the view from up there. But when we have programs, we would drop them down to allow for some privacy for the teacher or the students to be able to, you know, be a little more focused and not as distracted.
okay,
In-
would we be down the road on the 10-year plan? It's in addition to the Visco building? Could we put the treehouse on top of an addition?
I- Well, it wouldn't be a treehouse.
Well, you could access it
so
from
the-
outside.
The area that we're looking at is that as you go down the driveway between the concession stand and the Visco building into that wood, you know, that wooded area right in front of you that kind of overlooks the street hockey and skate park, has the best trees in there. Did identify some oaks that are nice and sturdy. We can utilize the elevation there to, you know, make the accessible ramp a little easier. So that was the area identified. But we're putting it on top of a building. I think we probably have to put a lift-in elevator to get someone up there to be accessible if we're making that much of an addition. So,
Okay. Anyone else? Have you looked at it? At some point, we want to go over it, you know, programming gives their input, you know, residents ask about things that they want, so if you hear requests, we want to, you know, bring it forward. Okay. Anything else for Brendan? Okay. Rich Cody, Recreation Maintenance.
Again,
I just want all the people in the audience to know your name.
okay. So the guys have been working basically since the last meeting on leaf cleanup and lighting. That's been the main focus. Basically, my entire report is just those things. I'll be quick. Nearly completed all the leaf cleanup before the snow came, which now we need a pretty good melt to try to get back to that. The remaining locations, we'll just focus on them in the springtime. And then basically the common lighting. The guys did a great job dealing with the 3-day snowstorm, working that whole thing, and then getting out on the common, make sure everything was finished out there. You know, behind the scenes stuff, you know, they hung over 30 wreaths, pine roping on the bandstand. They picked up the light towers and the generators for the event. Little other stuff like the snow fence that we have to put up so they allow us to do the fireworks. You know, there's like over 400 feet of snow fence that we had to put up through the snowbanks to make that happen. They put took the blower attachment off the vent track and put on the snow blower, and they were out on the common. Well, you saw it. They're out on the common clearing the snow so that we could actually have the event and make it safe for the residents and attendees. And that's been what's going on the last couple weeks. I just want to thank the entire maintenance staff because it was truly a group effort. Everybody was out there pitching in, especially after the snow came, to make sure it happened and went off smoothly.
All right. For Rich? They were out all night, Sunday into Monday, right?
Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Yeah.
Plowing.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
then work during the day and,
Yep.
yeah, way to go.
So
It was a nuisance storm,
They
too.
did a great job. Tough couple of days. Hopefully, we don't have another big one like that, but can't
Yeah.
control it, I guess.
And out the, you know what the other nice thing was? As I see them drive by, they're using all the pieces of equipment that we've got from town meeting, support from.
Yep.
The Ventrax,
Ventrax's been a great asset since we got it. It's so versatile.
yeah, but it's really nice to see the equipment being used, so,
Yep.
yeah, way to go. Give our
No, I
thanks
will,
to all the
definitely,
guys.
Definitely.
All right. Kelly Lehman, do you want to give us a programming?
Sure. So we had a lot of special events, as Rich kind of touched on this past weekend. Our holiday events kicked off on Saturday with the annual tree lighting, where we had the biggest Santa Claus I think I've ever seen in my life. And we also had a petting zoo out there. We had a gingerbread obstacle course. And of course, a visit from Santa, driven by Alfay on his antique fire truck. It was awesome. We followed that up with some fireworks and lighting of the trees, which we'd like to thank the maintenance staff for getting all the lights up and plowing the area so that all of that stuff can fit out in the common area. It was very well received by the residents. So that was on Saturday night. We had a number of program staff in to run all of those activities. We received sponsors from the Sullivan family and the Dan Fahey Foundation. In addition, we had cocoa provided by BF Garvey and Sons. Boston Salad brought soup out for the event, which was new this year, so people were able to warm up there as well. And Dave provided some popcorn for the event, and I think everyone there had a great time. I'd like to thank Jesse for being out and handling all of the setup part of it, that the maintenance staff, working with the maintenance staff to get all the stanchions out and the lights hung for our portion of the event, in addition to the garland that creates queuing lines for people and all the little stuff that you don't necessarily think about for an event but needs to be done on our end. She did the lion's share of that work this year. So would like to go ahead and thank her very publicly for that. Sunday we had breakfast with Santa where we had 180 people in attendance for the breakfast itself. That includes some ornament making, cookie decorating, face painting, a visit with Santa himself, and Hilton Garden Inn was generous with us once again this year, keeping the cost very reasonable for participants. And they also allow us to use their library in the front where Santa kind of hangs out and families are able to kind of get a private photo opportunity with Santa. And I think that's added value using the Hilton, but they're great to work with as well. Our holiday events wrap up this week with Calling Santa tomorrow and Wednesday night. Both of those sessions have filled at this point, so we're gathering information from families and passing that along to the North Pole so Santa can make some phone calls down to the residents of Burlington.
Great. Anyone for Kelly? No? Hey, I was talking to a resident, and she was just commenting how nice the tree lighting was and how impressive it was, how you've made it such an incredible event. So
Thank you.
pass it on
I will.
to you, that everyone notices your hard work and all the rest of the staff's hard work and the maintenance work on the event. But they were just, it's a pretty great community to be able to do that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Kevin,
Rich, you can't go back. It's not on the agenda. Okay. I'll let
One thing I
you.
forgot, I wanted to also thank the staff because a lot of the guys came down and volunteered their time to be there to make sure there wasn't any problems or if we needed stuff plugged in and that kind of thing. I did forget to say it during my report, so thank you very much
All right.
to the staff.
I stole my thunder, I was going to pile on.
Oh, okay.
But, no, we talked about the maintenance staff, and they do a lot for that event, program staff. But we also have volunteers and, part-time staff on the program side that come out. Some of them not prepared with gloves, but we got them some gloves and hand warmers. But it was a good team effort by everyone. So when you talk to that resident the next time, I can speak on behalf of Kelly and Rich. We're appreciative of the comments, and it's a lot of hard work for the staff, making sure it goes smoothly. So it may look smooth on the outside. Sometimes there's some wrinkles, but
No.
That's to be
People
expected.
notice your hard work. That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you guys did an unbelievable job, really. And the community came out in full. It was a cold night. I was cold. But I'll speak for myself. Me and Sully teamed up. We
Popcorn.
gave out some popcorn. I was struggling there a little bit at the end. But I'll tell you, hands off to the guys, even volunteering their time. Kelly, Jess is amazing. On the subject of gloves, I don't know. I talked to Kelly at the event. Now, it was a cold night, and there was people that didn't have gloves and stuff like. I don't know if it's we as a Recreation Commission. I know the maintenance staff has money for clothing, but her staff doesn't. And events like this, I know half the people that were working didn't have gloves. So I don't know if there was one way we could have, for events, special events, that we could have something like gloves. I know we've ordered jackets, but, I mean, I don't think they should be going out to buy, this is my opinion, I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe we could come up with somewhere where they could get some type of clothing allowance. I don't know how that works for staff. Is that something
We'll
that?
throw it to Brendan.
we can do that. Are you looking for, so the part-time staff that come and work, so everyone has, is identifiable, especially in the winter. We have, lighter jackets that go over their winter jackets so they're recognized. Are you looking for the full-time staff to have
Full-time
those gloves
staff,
or
full-time-
have
full-
some?
full-time staff that
part-time
like
staff
are out,
gloves.
like Jesse,
Yep,
Kelly, Laurel, like, your full-time staff that's
Yep.
out in the elements all the time. I don't think they should be constantly taking out of their pocket stuff that the town of Burlington is, you know, what we're making them do these events. Like I said, the staff gets, it's obviously different. I'm not telling you to get, you know, but I don't know if that's something that we could.
We could probably take care, it's not a huge
It's something
expense.
that
We could
comes out
take,
of we'd vote on.
I don't even think.
I don't think you
to.
need a vote, but if you guys are good with it, we can start looking for, you know, make sure everyone gets the same, or the right size, and
Yeah, I just think
this is
it's
the time of
something
year
that-
to grab them, so.
Yeah, I just think it's something that the staff needs. I mean, it was cold out, and I know you guys are out there multiple times doing stuff, events throughout the year, so I think
Okay.
it'd be a good idea.
Unfortunately, they need them at Easter in the Northeast as well.
Yeah, well, all the programs that you,
Yeah.
even in Easter.
Turkey
and,
trot,
you know, We have a
Spectaculars.
very raw fall, fall, spring, so in the fall can be cold too, so.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. So Brendan, you'll take care of it
Yes.
if you need it. Want to get it. That's
Yeah,
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Dave can hook you up with gloves, but they have to have endorsements on them.
Yeah.
All right. As the chairman's report, I don't think I have anything that needs to be discussed. Anyone have anything on their
Well, the calls for
sculpture?
entries are out. The deadline's January 17th. We do have a website, New England Sculpture Association, so that's going well. We'll know by the 17th of January for the entries.
All right.
Then we vote on them at that point, so.
No nudes, right?
No, not yet.
All right. Anything with the schools?
Just on the fields, we'll have a meeting Wednesday with Brendan and Brian from Tom Irwin, Kristen Russo, and myself. I invited Bob Kuhn, I don't know if he can make it or not.
I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, I just sent a thing to him today.
Okay.
So just, Kristen and Brian have been communicating for the last couple of months, and Brian's come up with a few things for her review, then ultimately bring it to the school committee. So he just wanted a chance to go over it with her in advance and with Brendan, and just make sure everybody's on the same page, so. Next meeting, we might have some hard information for you.
Excellent. Be nice to have better fields.
Be nice to have better fields.
All right. Dave, you talked about the the building. Is
Yeah.
there anything else? Paul? Thank you for the parking spaces at the Human Surface Building. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Paul's not talking tonight.
Oh, he's
He said he wasn't talking. He's sticking to his guns. I like it.
Dave, is that a filibuster?
Opposite
Or
us.
opposite, an
Yeah.
anti-filibuster. Okay, do we have any new business? I
No.
didn't see any, okay?
Nope.
Old business, why don't we take the easy ones? Can we approve the 2020 meeting dates as presented?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second by Dave. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Okay, 5-0-0. Did you vote, Paul? Okay. You were just testing me there. The field permit structure. Clarify Tier 6 nonprofit or charity. We talked about that last week, but a little bit in discussion. But now, since it's an agenda item, we can talk about it and make any votes we need to. Brendan, do you want to go over it?
Sure. So at our last meeting, we had a discussion on what constituted a nonprofit or charity event and how they should be defined on our permit application, because currently, we give an interpretation of the Easter Seals American Cancer Society Special Olympics. Those are big ones, but there may be other smaller nonprofits out there. So I looked at some other local in New England and actually one even into New York permits and how they clarify what a nonprofit is. And so what I found is that many departments require the groups to identify who identify as a nonprofit to be registered with their state as a nonprofit and have some kind of evidence of a 501c3 or 501c certificate with the federal government or the state. So after reviewing our policy, I know we had talked about some, the possibility of changes. I have a couple recommendations, if you'd like to hear them now, or if you have any questions on, before we
No,
get into
let's-
anything. Okay?
Let's go.
So I would recommend that we require the organizations requesting a permit as a nonprofit to provide proof of the nonprofit status. So to qualify, they should be registered with the state of Massachusetts as a nonprofit and have evidence of a 501c certificate. If the nonprofit organization is not Burlington-based, they must have a Burlington resident as the sponsor. So if we have, whatever it is, a cancer walk or whatever that, if it's Mass General or Dana-Farber or whoever, that there's a Burlington sponsor, a local sponsor. So there's someone in the community responsible for anything to do with the event. The name of the organization requesting the permit and the organization registered with the state must be the same. So if it's, Joe's Charity, and they give us a form for Easter seals, the two aren't the same. Easter seals should be the requester, and then, the local person can be the point person. But should have a matchup. It prevents people from going and just asking to use someone that they know they're nonprofit. I think that would help us kind of ensure that they're legitimate nonprofits or charities that are requesting the field. And then I have some recommendations on usage, because on our current slip, it talks about a permit fee. There's a $50 flat fee, and then usage and staffing is on a sliding scale. Doesn't give any direction as to what it is, and I would recommend that we look at a $25 an hour for a nonprofit. That's half of what a private clinic, so the tier 5 is $50 an hour, plus the usage fee. Or plus, I should say, it could go higher than $50 an hour. But, this kind of gives them a break. As a nonprofit, it's half of what they would be under a private clinic. It's cheaper than if they have, any of the other tiers. Tier 4, Tier 3, it would be down in that Tier 2 area, so which would be an adult or youth group, 90% or more Burlington residents. So I think my recommendation would be $25 an hour. And then that permit would still, there'd still be that flat rate of $50, and then the lights, an administrative fee of $25, and then the lights, if needed, at the going rate, which has been about $50. So, those are my recommendations. We can pick them apart and discuss any portion of them, but I think that as far as clarifying that Tier 6, I think that will help. And, we don't really state what the fee is beyond the flat permit fee and administrative fee, but this will go a long way if we say it's $25 an hour. And that could be reviewed if, down the road, the other fees are going up. Obviously, we want to look at adjusting that as well. And then the final thing, we don't have a requirement for insurance, and really large groups should be providing their own liability insurance and naming the town of Burlington as an additional insured for their event. So Easter Seals, they come in and do a fun run. They should be providing, it's usually an Accord liability policy, and it just names the location, the owner of the location, as an additional insured on their policy. In the, I'm confirming this, but I believe it is $1 million 3 million, so it's 1 million each occurrence and then 3 million aggregate. I believe that's what the town requires. So that should be part of this too. So when we do have a large group, they're responsible for getting that policy. If it's a large group of individuals and, they're not going in under the nonprofit, they're just coming in to, rent a field for an activity, they need to go out and get that policy. So if it's a loosely organized adult lacrosse, we'll say, well, there's nothing against lacrosse, that, but just using them as an example, they should, be able to go online, name of their organization, and get a liability policy. They can do it online or a local insurance company. They're pretty easy to obtain. It does cost some money, but it protects them and it protects us.
Okay, so you have a lot of
I have a lot.
changes. Okay. Do you want to take it piecemeal, each change, and vote it? Just to make it easier so the end motion isn't
Sure.
something that's overwhelming. So I think the first thing you wanted to do is for tiers 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, did you want to take the current policy and eliminate the all are subject to the Recreation Commission approval?
Yep. Sorry, I didn't get to that part, but yes.
Let's work our way down.
Yeah, so by doing that, by removing all are subject to Recreation Commission, in the busy season in the summer, we get them daily, looking to rent a field that night or the next day. We don't have that many Recreation Commission meetings, although it might be fun to meet daily. But we don't have that many. So, I haven't brought them to you guys. I don't know what happened before I was here, if they came every meeting with a stack of permit requests, but to move those along and make sure people get, permits in a timely manner, I think that might be a wise thing to do.
Okay, so does anyone want to make that motion that we eliminate the requirement of the recreation approval for tiers 1 through 5?
Yes.
Okay,
So moved.
Second.
okay. David, second by Tom. Any discussion? No, it just makes sense because you have a lot of little rentals that you do during the summer that we're not going to be available to vote on.
Right.
Okay.
And to go along with that, we would keep it for tier 6, and I do, thank you for reminding me on this. I do have some kind of statement, whether this is exactly it or we could change it, but in order for, those groups.
So we'll just finish this one.
Oh, okay. I'm
And we'll
sorry.
take that off, and then we'll go to the next piece. We'll just make them all little votes, if that's okay.
Okay.
So we'll move the question on that, removing the Recreation Commission approval for tiers 1 through 5. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Well, we get, aye? I love this, Paul. And oppose, abstain, so 5-0-0. Okay, so tier 6, you're going to keep, you want to keep the Recreation Commission approval?
Correct. And what I would recommend that we add is that groups requesting a permit as a nonprofit must submit their request at least 30 days prior to the event in order to allow for Recreation Commission approval. We meet every 30 days at least once, so I think that is fair. If it came up for whatever reason, it was a little longer than, one of our meetings got canceled, I would look to put together a meeting, in an appropriate amount of time so that we could make a decision if it was a large event and it was a recreation or a nonprofit. And there were questions that we couldn't answer in the office if they said, no, we really are a nonprofit, and they couldn't provide proof, to have the ability to come to a commission meeting and discuss it.
Okay, I think 30 days is too short, in my opinion, in the sense that anyone that's running an event has to start publicizing it at least 30 days before the event to get people to come. If we don't vote on it, they're advertising something that if we don't approve, would
Good.
45 days or 60 days be a better, you know, they,
Yeah, 60 days might be, that gives us, you know, a good amount of time to get together to decide on it. I don't know what you guys feel, if anyone else.
Well, if they don't come under that 60 days, I think 45, because what if, you know, the nonprofit comes out and it's something that just comes together real quick and it's under 60 days? I definitely agree with the 30 days is tough. 45, somewhere in the middle, maybe? I don't know. What do you guys think? It's-
let's just,
45, yeah.
I think the further you push it back, the more likely somebody's not going to be aware of it until it's too late.
That's, yeah.
So, you know, you want to be reasonable, but you also don't want it, you also want to be reasonable to the applicants. 45 I could live with.
it's not to hurt the applicant.
No, I
I'm just-
understand, but
Right.
they'll get caught in it if, you know, they're busy doing this, and they said, oh geez, I didn't know I had to get the field approval.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
In all.
They'll learn the second time, but they won't know it the first time.
Yeah,
you know?
they're not gonna, it's not, it has to be 30 days, and the ones that plan the big ones, they're gonna come to us 4 months out anyways. But this is those last-minute ones that wanna put together a softball tournament for a group of friends and say, oh, we're a nonprofit, and, you know, try to sneak it through. But the big ones are gonna come 4 to 6 months in advance. We already got the call from Leahy last week, and they do theirs in June, so.
Tom?
I had a question on, to my knowledge, at least, maybe I haven't been paying attention, we haven't been voting these up till now.
Correct.
Do you prefer that the commission votes on these? I mean, we're giving you the latitude on the 1 through 5s because, you know, that's what you guys do. Does it make life easier for you by having us be the yes or no person on that? Or why can't that just be tier 1 through 6? You guys do it administratively.
It can be, what I guess I was looking at is if there is questions on why they're being charged a certain fee and that they have the ability to come and ask the commission, but I guess that could happen
It
anyways.
happened last meeting.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what anybody else thinks. I don't want to make any more of a bureaucratic process than we have to. So, I mean, if there's a good reason that they should come through us because you're having trouble with people abusing it or whatever, then I'm okay with that. But the theory for tiers 1 through 5 given you was somewhat timing,
Yep.
but inherent in it is us trusting you to formally, you know, to review the application and be satisfied and comfortable with it and whatnot. We haven't, up until now, been approving these, you know, Leahy comes in every year apparently.
Right.
We haven't been approving those and things have worked fine. So I guess I don't know what everybody else thinks. I don't know why we should make that something that we have to be involved in unless there's a good reason to.
I agree with you, Tom.
I agree with that in a sense. Maybe you're looking for protection, but I mean, let's put it this way, if we set the regulations and then they don't meet those,
Yeah.
like the 501c3, you gotta be registered. If you look it up and it doesn't meet, you just say, you don't meet the requirements. If they say, oh, well, I have an issue, say you gotta come in front of the board.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. The policy,
Yeah.
the way it's currently written, the same across the board.
Right,
No one,
right.
you know, so
It was-
I'm fine. We can, thank you for bringing that up. I'm okay with that if you guys are.
Well, I know why the spirit of the policy was that our fields were getting overused at the time, and this was done to protect the fields, so that outside groups weren't using fields that needed to be rested, or we didn't want to overuse them. So that's the spirit of the vote on all of them.
Okay?
That's why it was in there when we were having a serious problem. the hard thing for you would be then you would have to determine what the fee is for the charity, because it's a sliding scale
Currently,
currently.
but we can, so I have recommendations there when we get to those. That could clarify it.
Okay, so would you want the support of the Recreation Commission when you if on events, so that we can support you, or, you know, if it's an outside event that wants to use Burlington?
No, I think it's fine if we remove all or subject. If someone doesn't like the fee, they have the ability to come to a commission meeting. So, and discuss it here, and, you know, we administer these, or enforce these permits, or administer the permits according to the, you know, the same across the board and according to what's written on them. So, but I think if we had talked about, or I had given some recommendations on pricing for that Tier 6, I think that would clarify it, because it's in writing what it is. It doesn't talk about a you know, usage and staffing fee on a sliding scale. It would give it in black and white.
Okay,
I would
all
think,
right.
I would think it would make your job easier not to be it's a lot of work to put it on the agenda and stuff like that. I mean, it's sort of the same, right? And then if there's an issue, they'd have to come in front of the board.
Right, and it'd be up to them. I would give them that option. More than welcome to come and discuss it with the commission, and you know, we can have that healthy discussion. But I don't think, now that Tom brought it up, I don't think we need to keep all our subject in Tier 6. I think we could probably remove it, and if someone doesn't like the fee, they have every option to come here and discuss it.
I mean, based on my experience, 99% of the people are okay with it. I mean, we had obviously a group that came before us last time, but I can't, off the top of my head, as long as I've been doing it, can't think of anybody else that's come in to complain about it, so. Under the if it ain't broke, don't fix it theory, I would say let's keep it the way it has been, and let the administration deal with the applications, and on a case-by-case, if somebody has an issue, they can come see us.
Okay, Brendan, if you had a questionable decision, could you bring it to the commission?
Sure.
If you, out of the norm, irregular, doesn't seem like it's appropriate use on a field, or...
Yep. I wouldn't hesitate. I would ask you guys, especially, you know, if it's something that I've never seen done here, or you know, maybe it was, or someone says, oh, we did this here before 10 years ago, and I didn't know anything about it, the staff didn't know anything, you know, and I'd count on, guess it would be you and Paul to remember, you know, back, if that was really a permit that was done before. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Can I make
Okay.
maybe one suggestion, Kevin?
Go right ahead.
The permit currently reads, all are subject to Recreation Commission approval. Why don't, if we just say that all are subject to Recreation Commission review, and then on a case-by-case where you want to bring it to us, it says right there that we have the authority to stick our noses into it if asked, but they're not not required to do so.
Okay, I'm good with that.
For all of them, or
I would
just
say-
a blanket?
I would say all of them, so you don't have to come before us on a short notice, on one of the lower tiers, but you can, if you want to, and it's right there that if we're the ultimate arbiter if there's a problem, but there's only a problem if you bring it to us, or if somebody
Okay.
else comes in.
How do you want to word that motion? Just so we get it right. We've already removed all is subject to Recreation Commission approval.
Well, I would then make a motion, well, first, why don't we...
But that was for
maybe-
tiers 1 through 5.
Maybe we can do it this way, make a motion to treat Tier 6 the same way as we just voted to treat Tier 1 through 5, and then a second motion to add the phrase, all are subject to Recreation Commission review into the onto the permit application.
So on the bottom of the permit, we could
Yeah,
put that disclaimer there.
yeah.
Yep.
And then the third would be the time for tier 6. Go to
Well-
45 days if you want that.
And again, now, the main reason I think for that time frame was to give us a chance to review
Right.
it and approve it. That's not going to be required anymore. I mean, if for a bigger one, you prefer more than a 2-day notice, I certainly think that's reasonable. Whether you want 30 days or 45 days, I defer to you on that one. But the motive to make sure we have time to get it before us, I don't think is necessarily a factor anymore.
Not anymore, no. But if someone approached us and said, want to have this event in 6 weeks, I would get it on our next agenda,
So,
if I wasn't in favor of it or there was a problem.
so do you want to put a timeframe within which somebody for a tier 6 has to make application, only because if that's larger groups that require more prep work or whatever, if you want some lead time for that?
Just so you can investigate it a little bit?
I don't know, what do you guys feel?
I think with the larger groups, you should have something in there, or even if you just break it up into a head count. Once they get over a maximum number,
Yeah.
then that kicks in. If they're planning an event and they're expecting 2,000 people, then, or you don't have to go up that high.
Right,
Go lower than that.
time to review it.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that should be exclusive to tier 6. That should be across.
All groups?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense that they're singled out, that they have to
Yeah, that's
meet
a
that
good-
benchmark.
Yeah, that's a good point. You might want to do the notice based on the amount of anticipated participants, just from a logistical standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like when you have to order porta potties, what's the time frame on that?
They're pretty quick. They're
Quick, I
Yeah,
mean, all that type of stuff, and,
yeah.
those, I mean.
But I think 45 days would probably be enough. That's, what's that, 7 weeks, almost 6 weeks? So I think that would be fair. So we need to define that number, is it 100 people, is it 200 people?
I think in the past too, we've fallen into a situation where they say there's gonna be 40 people and it ends up being 100 people.
Right.
That happens quite frequently too, so we definitely have to get a number in there.
My only concern on a time frame was that people are advertising an event months before the event happens. If they're going to use that property, they should have permission
Prior to advertising.
prior to advertising. That's
Mo-
my concern.
Most of them seek that permit and then begin advertising. I think we have had some that have advertised before they sought the permit, but, and it was able to work out for them. But maybe it's groups of 100 or more, because that 100 could really be 150, but it just as easily could be 75 if they, But I think that 100 may be a number, and we can see how that works, and if it needs to be adjusted, up or down, we can do that. But giving groups of 100 or more must submit their request at least 45 days in advance. And it doesn't have to be to allow for Recreation Commission approval, but approval of the permit.
Do you want to rewrite the whole thing and bring it back
Yep.
as one?
Oh, yep.
Or do you want to keep on, we can continue everything.
Yeah.
So
Yep, I can bring it to our next meeting.
it's up to you. Do you want,
I mean, I could formulate it right now, if you want. So groups of 100 or more requesting a permit must submit their request at least 45 days prior to the event in order to allow for approval.
everyone comfortable with that?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. And that's for all tiers.
Yes, for all tiers.
Okay. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Tom, second?
Second?
Kevin, discussion?
What about the insurance, real quick?
We're going to get to that.
Another vote.
Okay. All right. I'm good. There's so much, okay.
Okay, let's move the question then. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstain? You voted, Paul? All right. It's like that commercial where they wanted a quiet roommate. And they get a mime. Okay, so,
Watch my right hand.
do you want to do the rate next or the insurance?
Why don't we do the rate? So, on the tier, I think the other tiers for now are okay. I think the tier for, or the tier 6, the nonprofit, rate should be, a permit fee of $50, a flat fee, $25 an hour for usage, and then administrative fee of $25 can stay in there, and then the going rate for electrical for lights if needed.
Okay, Tom had a question on that?
Yeah, getting back to the amount of the participants, Dave's question, if there are 300 people, you need X amount of porta potties, is there an allowance in here for the size of the group in terms of the fees and whatnot? It just seems to me that if you get a big crowd, it's different than a small crowd, clearly. And if we just charge them the flat $25 an hour fee, there's a lot of other built-in costs that go along with hosting a larger group. And do we have the ability to pass those costs along somehow?
Right, so having a statement in there that
Plus,
yeah,
out of whatever costs, and I don't know how to phrase it, but
right,
costs that, in the Recreation Department's opinion, are necessary to host a group of the anticipated size, whatever, something vague, but there's going to be more costs involved with a big group than a small group. And if we're the ones that have to get the porta potty, or bring in a cleanup crew afterwards, or get a police detail, or whatever the case may be, I think we have to have the ability to pass those costs along.
okay.
We can't expect to eat those in $25 an hour charge.
Right, no. You are right there.
Subject to change.
No, the porta potties is an extra, Brendan's just making it easy for people by ordering it. That could be on there.
Right, but,
Time.
and I think.
We could require it.
Right, I think it is in the other ones, because, that was something we talked about when the guy came before us a couple of weeks ago. But I'm concerned if we put this rate in there for nonprofits, that's all we can charge. And if that's what everybody wants to do, that's fine, but I think we should be aware that there's going to be out-of-pocket expenses that go with hosting a large group, that if we don't have the ability to pass it along, and if we do a policy that doesn't include that, the applicant could say, hey, there's nothing in there about that. And then all of a sudden, we've got 800 people out on the common someday, and we got to come and clean up after it, and all sorts of things. I just think there should be some sort of a catch-all, flexible type of a phrase in there, plus any other out-of-pocket expenses the Recreation Commission Department incurs.
Deems necessary.
Deems necessary to deal with a crowd of that size. If there's 30 people, it's probably not going to be anything. If it's 500 people, it's going to be something.
Right.
Well, the current policy says permit fee, $50 flat fee, usage and staffing fee is on a sliding scale.
Right.
So that just leaves it up to be maybe too flexible, but
But as long as that also applies to the It just seems like we're setting up a separate scale for the tier 6. I just want to make sure that this other language in here still applies, not just a couple of things that we've listed here. We still have the ability to do what you just said. And not, this isn't an exclusive list of costs we can pass along to a nonprofit. These are just some of the charges. It's not just a $25 an hour fee. If there's 800 people and we got to bring in 10 porta potties, $25 an hour fee is not going to cover it.
So, can I just ask a question? It sounds to me that you're talking about like a special event permit itself, like that might be something that's different than a field permit where you're looking at renting it for a softball tournament.
Potentially, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like if the commission deems it necessary, that could be like, if you're expecting over 500 people, you have to fill out this special event permit.
Sure.
Which could include all of that.
Right.
All of that language.
No, that, and perfect.
Could be something that might be a little bit separate than
Yeah.
what you're looking at as far as the field permit.
Exactly. I mean, the group that we had, they were anticipating a whole bunch of people. I don't know how much that, so clearly there were out-of-pocket expenses that we were going to incur that go beyond just $25 an hour fee and the flat fee of $50 or something.
Right.
So I just want to have the ability to pass those along, and it might only be 5% of the groups that even pertains to. Most of the rest of them are a little softball game or whatever.
Right.
But I just want to make sure we have that ability to do that, because otherwise it could get expensive to, you have a big crowd that's not as responsible as the group that we were talking to last time, who leave the place a mess. Now we got to pay overtime for people to come in and clean up, and we got to fix fields, and we got to, do a whole, potentially it could get expensive. I just want to make sure we have the ability to pass those costs along, whether it's a cutoff on the number, anything over X amount of people. This is the separate sheet you'd be aware of.
Yeah, it goes back to the attendees.
Yeah.
The number of
And then you
attendees.
never know until they come in, you're right.
Could you put it, if additional fees are incurred,
Yeah, something like that.
the Recreation Department,
It has the,
Yeah.
you know,
they'll be responsible?
because, a lot of times, you don't know it's going to be a mess until after they're done, and now they left it like, I just think that there should be some kind of a safety net in there for us in the 1 out of 100 situations where we have a big crowd that creates a problem.
Well, I'm just thinking that the special event type permit would also have a number of questions that wouldn't need to be answered if you're renting it for like a charity softball tournament, but you're renting it for someone where you might have, an event where you might have like 500 people. We're gonna wanna know how many people really are there, like, so that you can make informed decisions on how many staff you need, or how many porta potties are gonna be required to get.
But
Which
that-
you wouldn't have to fill out if you're probably tiers 1 through 5.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but even a charity softball tournament, if you have 50 teams show up, that's with parents and younger siblings, and they're bringing picnics and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I'm not suggesting that it's only people who are causing trouble. It's just large groups create
Sure.
more mess and more everything
More work
else.
for everyone.
Not only that, you say it's a softball or baseball tournament, they come in, they're all from other towns. It might be a sponsor of a Burlington resident they're doing a softball tournament for cancer, right? And then all these people come, and then we got the sliding scale, we gotta have 2 staff on for the event,
Groom fields in between games,
Well,
that's
you-
stuff that we're dealing with now.
Yeah, so all that goes in, what's, do we have to have the rate of each, what our staff would be, or, I don't know, how does that work, staffing? Do we gotta throw that rate out, or you just tell them up front, for this event, we're gonna have 2 staff
It
on?
changes,
Yeah.
it changes yearly, so yeah, we would figure out what that cost is, based on, we do it based on our, top person, and what they're, because they could be the person working,
Right.
so we have to figure that. And then we add that cost in. So we need something out there, sounds like maybe another tier or special event, permit, if it's
Well,
something,
I
but
just think
also.
if just like a catch-all phrase at the end, expenses are ultimately determined by the administration based on the type of event, participation,
Number
et
of
cetera.
anticipated, yep.
And, that's something they have to work with you on when they come in and make an application. If they say, yeah, it's going to be a softball tournament for the Murphy family, 50 people are coming, well, that's one thing. If it's going to be a softball tournament with teams coming from all over the place, and there's going to be 30 teams there for the whole weekend, that's something different. I just think we just need something in there to give staff the ability to use a judgment on the nature of whatever the event is, to be able to pass along any out-of-pocket expenses that we deem are appropriate. And it could be extra staff, it could be cleanup, it could be porta potties, it could be whatever, but
Right.
who knows?
So I'm sure there's probably a line out, someone has that on their permit. So I can do some further investigation on that, to add it, or bring it to the next meeting, and we can look at it at that time. But I think two things came out of this. We're looking for a general statement on there that talks about, if the department deems that additional costs are going to be incurred,
Right.
the permittee is responsible for those costs and will be determined by the Director of Parks and Recreation. And then we can look at, because we do sometimes have large groups that approach us about doing events in Burlington, and we, work with them, but it would be good to have a special event permit application, so we can look at those two things too. If they say, well, we're expecting 700 people, well, that's more than just your typical ball field rental or smaller event so.
And it could be over a whole weekend. They're at the parks,
Right.
Rotary, and, they're using both fields. It's a whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. If we were able to do that, that's a whole other ballgame that we would have to.
In the school department, if someone rented the auditorium for a weekend, they'd have to pay janitor fees.
Yeah, those are all worked into the fee. Janitor fees,
So if we had to hire
utilities.
staff, it
Right.
should be included in,
Right.
because on a Saturday or a Sunday, we're paying time and a half for someone and getting $25 an hour, we're losing money.
I mean,
And it's not, so my personal opinion is, we're not here to make money.
Correct.
As a
That's what
rec
you're saying,
commission, we're here, and
passing
if
costs
something's a
along.
good charity, but we should cover our costs and protect fields.
I mean, we used to do, I don't know if they still do the Little League tournament. There used to be one of those every summer that you go for the whole weekend up
Yep.
at Simon's, and they'd come
It
from all
would
over the
be
place.
Thursday to Sunday.
And you'd have a crew on to line the fields between games
between
and
games,
picking
yeah.
stuff up and, stuff like that. I just think we have to be able to cover our costs.
So we figure a couple of those tournaments in when we do our overtime, our budgeting and overtime, we figured, but there's inevitably some that creep up that aren't on there, extra tournament or whatever. And I think Little League has helped out before.
Yeah, they have.
But when it's a outside group,
Yeah.
we try to put together, hey, we're going to need 2 people, and we do pass that cost
Yeah.
on. So having something in writing, though.
Exactly, that's
be
what,
good.
I know, I'm sure we've been doing it, but I always get concerned when you put something in writing, and you forget to put something in, then somebody says, well, it's right here, there's nothing
Right,
in
it
there.
only says
Right.
25 an hour, and
Right,
that covers
right.
everything, so.
Well, the existing permit policy right now is that there's a permit fee of $50 for Tier 6, and the usage and staffing fee is a sliding scale.
Right.
Okay.
So that's what it is
Okay.
right now.
Okay,
The question is, who determines the sliding scale based on the event?
So Brendan would, and if they have an issue, they come in front of the board.
Right, but I think we're looking for some clarification, because that does get a little,
Sliding scale.
sliding, who so.
how far is
we
the
can-
sliding?
Yeah, exactly. We can tighten that up and
Okay.
find that proper verbiage to put on there, and I'll bring it to our next meeting to discuss. We'll find something. And
Okay,
then
so
we'll look at a special event permit section as well. Is that what you're suggesting?
I was, but if the commission's not interested in that, we don't have to
No, I don't have,
Add more paperwork, like, that's not my
Yeah,
intent,
no.
but I think the questions that you would ask for a special event versus a typical permit that comes within our, like, I know Nancy is on the phone with people probing questions
Right.
that aren't necessarily on our permit already. So if we had a form that they filled out that answered all of those questions beforehand, I think it would be more helpful for us as a staff to be able to say, like, Rich could say, you're definitely gonna need 3 staff members for that event, or extra trash barrels, or whatever.
Okay, so do we have a motion on the floor right now?
I don't think
Teresa,
so.
do you know if we do?
This is what we have, this is what I want to talk about. So you guys voted on removing the language, all are subject to recreation commission approval for tiers 1 through 5. Then spoke about doing it for 1 through 6, but didn't vote on it. And then talked about changing the language to do recreation commission review, but didn't, for all tiers, but didn't vote on it.
We haven't voted on the second one, we haven't voted on it.
So we haven't, so do we have a motion already for all is subject to Recreation Commission review on all tiers?
No, there's no motion on the floor
We
currently.
talked-
Okay.
we
You
talked
talked
about
about
that.
making 3 motions. But no motion.
Maybe we should sit down and come up with a.
Comprehensive.
With a solid plan, and then we can just come in and. take
Do it all,
Right.
I think that makes sense.
okay.
But is the original vote stand?
That's been voted, so because by right Brendan should be coming to us for everything otherwise, so we've moved on that. Can you talk about insurance? We don't have to vote on anything, but what direction is it? Does that sound all right?
Yeah,
We need to talk
I
about it.
think it makes sense. These types of one-day policies are out there. When one of my daughters got married, it was at like a camp place, and that was one of the requirements.
Speak.
So you go online, it costs $100 or something, you get coverage for 1 day. So it's not a crushing financial burden to put on somebody, but I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so, but where do you put that requirement on? Which tier? Tier 5, tier 6, both 5 and 6?
I think really, all of them should have insurance. So, that Saturday morning or Sunday morning adult men's soccer that plays, it's going to be required to have that policy that covers them for their season, all the way up to, a large group event. And it's based on, I believe it's based on number expected
Number
in
of people,
attendance, and so we did require it for everything. When I was in Marblehead, it was required. And so if they had a ceremony at the Lighthouse out at Chandler Hubby, and it was the bride and groom, and each of them had 5 of their closest friends, they had to have a policy. So, and I think it's, the amounts I'm confirming, I'm waiting to hear back from our insurance representative, and but I'm guessing it's in the 1 million, 3 million is what they're going to require.
That's a pretty common amount.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't take a big crowd for somebody to turn an ankle in a hole playing soccer and tear his ACL or something and sue because the field was in good shape or whatever.
Okay, but on the other hand, if you had a group of people who got a field permit to have a family softball game,
Right,
you would be making them get insurance also.
that's a good point.
As a recreation thing, you should be encouraging people to go out and exercise and move, and so we don't want to be over litigious.
Yeah, no, I agree. We could do it on a numbers thing, or maybe on a tier thing, maybe.
So why don't I pose the question to the town's insurance representative and say, is there a level at which this should be imposed at, number of people, or is it small groups as well?
Kevin's got a good point,
Yeah,
Right, it becomes a deterrent to renting,
That's another
Um,
thing I worry about. Are we deterring renters from coming to us because, all of a sudden, you have, like Kevin said, 30 people wanting to play on a field, and then,
They've got
oh, well, it's,
insurance,
it's $120. Oh, well, so I don't know. But I agree with it. Maybe there should be a number.
Maybe for the larger groups or the,
Tier 5s, which are private clinics, camps,
Yeah.
and tournaments, something
Yeah.
that's an event.
yeah.
In Tier 6, which is another big event compared to,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, Tier 6, we can
Kelly's
actually ask them.
biting her lip here, so. We want people to have fun.
I want people to have fun too. I don't think as a family you should have to get a permit to go out and have a softball game.
I agree.
I think that we should be able to leave green spaces open for people to recreate all of the time, and it shouldn't be a requirement that you go and get that.
Well,
On the same token, if you look at, and I know this isn't gonna be a popular statement, but if you look at the average use amounts for the youth sports leagues, I think it makes sense that we're on their liability insurance, that we get the town of Burlington as an additional insured there, because of the amount of time they're using the field, the more likely someone is going to get hurt there. So which would fall in a tier 1. So I think it's a kind of a catch-22, in my opinion. Sorry. I will stop talking.
Okay, in the reason there were tiers where there were gypsy organizations that were using
And there still are. Like, we try
using
and
it-
catch them all of the time.
using our fields, where they're AAU soccer, baseball, softball, that are using the fields, and the coaches make money, and they're using the town fields for free because they're just finding out where they're open and using them. So that's, again, where the
Yeah.
the idea of making tiers and policies was to prevent that from happening, especially in the years that we,
So maybe for Tier 5, and Tier 5 we require insurance, because you're right, that's more likely to be a use where somebody's making a buck, it's a commercial use as opposed to.
all our fields are open to the public unless there's a permit for that field for that time. So it's not like you said, it's family. I mean, they might want to come use, they could probably use it, and then, well, no, we have a permit, so you can't use this field. Because most,
well, the idea of the permits was that the people that were bringing, there weren't enough fields, people were having club soccer teams, and they wanted to use the fields, AAU softball coming in, using the fields, and they were using our fields without permits, or they wanted permits, and
Permits are subletted.
say it, Rich?
They were using without permits, and they were charging people to come and participate in the programs. That's where it all started from.
right.
Do you recall the people coming up from Lowell and using TRW Field every Sunday afternoon? That's right. And there were also, there was a group doing cricket on one of the fields. And, they were just assuming they could use it and use it. I've seen them doing disc, whatever it is. I don't know if it's disc golf or
Frisbee
or
football,
soccer.
ultimate frisbee.
Ultimate
Frisbee, yeah. And I mean, that, I wouldn't do it. I mean, they were running around like crazy and banging into each other and so forth. And it was just a group at work that was trying, yeah. So
I see a lot of that at lunchtime at the fields.
I mean, but if you look at our needs assessment, one of the major drivers that came out of our needs assessment was more
Available space.
availability for open space for you to recreate with your family, with your friends on your own time.
Sure.
And leaving some field space open for that, and not requiring a group of a family to come have a softball game and they have to get a permit to do so. I think that came through pretty loud and clear going through the needs assessment piece of it. So I do think on some level, and I understand what you're saying, Kevin, about people going and knowing the fields are open Like, I remember all of that. But at the same time, like, if our residents are saying that's a need, that we've identified that as an area where we want to be able to just go have fun, I think we should be responsive to that too.
Right. We, growing up, would go to a ball field and get a game going.
every
Right.
day.
The kids don't do it anymore, but
No, everything's
Because they have to get a
privatized
permit
now.
now.
Well,
And insurance.
Just kidding.
well, the thing is, everything's privatized now, so everyone's making money on these privatizations. Then all of a sudden, the coach wants to have a practice on one of our fields, and these parents are paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, we can just go down to, such and such field, and, and then all of a sudden, we have the situation where, we got a family there, and wow, you got a permit, and then it's a fighting thing. And this guy's sitting there making a ton of money. He's trying, so it's tough with these fields, with how everything's been privatized. Like when we were kids, like you said, you just go out and play, and we did whatever we wanted to do, and we play this neighborhood against this neighborhood. Now everything's so privatized that it's tough to come up with.
okay, Brendan, you've been real quiet about this now. Is this a conundrum now?
Well,
I like
we've definitely
Did you use
opened,
that word? Wait a minute,
opened.
Teresa, can you put the word, Kevin used the word conundrum. I don't know how to spell it.
So we've definitely opened the walnut here and starting to crack into it. But I think that if we're not requiring that smaller group to get a permit, right? We're saying, the Smith family, whatever, wants to go out and play a softball game, and there's an available field, they should be able to do it. We talked about this with our field signage when we were changing them, and we finally got that under wraps, and we have to get those signs out that, we said permitted groups have priority use of the field. I agree with what Kelly said. The youth group should be naming us as an additional insured, and we can require that. That's an easy thing, and I think they'll all do it. It is those smaller groups of, 12 adult men or women that are out there playing soccer on a Saturday or Sunday, but they're playing teams from other towns. So they're not just playing Burlington, it's not just a pickup game. So they may be in a league, which they could produce a insurance certificate from that league. I think it's one more thing to look into to come back. I mean, we can continue to discuss it tonight, but without seeing how it's done in other places, what's required, but I think we're just going to keep going in a circle. So tried to be quiet to let the discussion, to let Paul, but to, get the ideas out now, and those are all things that we can look at and ask the questions on before coming back with a more solid. So we're talking about a small tier here, and we wind up revamping the whole permit application. So I've been taking it in as well, because there's some valid points all around, but trying to fit them all together, I don't know if we can. I don't know if it's something that someone's not going to be happy. So someone that wants to get a permit, but we're requiring them to get insurance, they're not going to be happy, and we'll just have to deal with that if that's the way we go. But I also see the other side. Do you require a permit for 20 people to play a soccer game? I don't have an answer. That's why I've been quiet.
I don't
Paul?
think for the pickup stuff, I recall this started because of the field use. You got to rest them sometime, was what we were saying at that time. And if people are going to be as part of their league, or a group of 20 people are going to come every Sunday afternoon and play on the field, we have to fit that in with field. That's how we get started, I thought. And I thought it was a great idea, because the police said, well, we can't kick people off unless you have a sign. So now it says if you have a permit, you get to the use of the field if somebody's on there, and you have the permit for that time. So I think, you could set up a set of rules that doesn't prohibit the spontaneous, I guess the word I'm looking for, spontaneous use of the fields by people who get together, like you were saying, and let's go play a ball game, or a family's having a picnic, and they say, well, let's go down to Wildwood and have a ball game.
They shouldn't have to have a permit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But if it's an organized group of any kind that's, doing an event, and they're going to have to have a field, and so they want the field for that time, then you can make the judgment that, our rules and regulations require that if we give you the field for that period of time, that you do have to have insurance for the protection of the town, or however you want to put it.
So that's saying, if they're looking for a permit to secure a specific time and specific field, then we're saying you need insurance. If it's just a spontaneous pickup, like a family is having a get-together at their house, we'll use the Murphys. And they decide they want to go over to Simon's Park, they should just be able to go over. But if there's a permitted group there
Yeah,
that can produce a copy of their permit,
yeah.
the Murphys would have to find another spot to play.
Well, we talk about it.
They'd fight for the field.
Amusing them because they live close in proximity to Simon's
Fight you
Park.
for that permit.
Yeah. So.
Charlie Murphy settled it back in the day.
Yeah. And Kelly brought up a valid point from the needs assessment, is that people were looking to not have to secure a permit to go hit some baseballs with their kids out on a baseball field, softball field, go play lacrosse on one of the turf fields if no one else was using it without having to get a permit. To just go and do that, kick the soccer ball or whatever it is, as long as it wasn't golf or archery. Go and do those things out on the field.
I think so. They're a taxpayer, and they're paying.
Good.
Would a waiver help? So like for those smaller people, smaller groups who want to have a designated time and place but don't want to spend money on insurance, rather than having them required to have insurance, require them to sign a waiver that they won't sue?
Well,
if somebody's saying, we want the field for this amount of time here, that means that any spontaneous groups can't come. So I think it's a privilege to say, we want the field at this time, because I may want to go down there and use the field at that time. So if it's not an organized league or something like that, I think that's where you come to the problem of them asking for permission to reserve something that's there for, as Kelly says, for the general use of the public. How's that for a guy who said he wasn't going to say
I don't
anything?
have a lot to say. You were savoring up.
On this side?
I'm good.
That's a safe answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you research it? Every other town must have some kind of structure, right?
yeah. Well, most towns do. So I'll look into it and how they determine who needs insurance, what they require. Is it a group size? Is it everybody? Just a blanket insurance? And I'll also check with our insurance representative, see what they suggest. So I'll check with them on the 1 million, 3 million, which I believe is what it is, as well as, is that, there is the state recreational use statute out there that has some validity still, and And it just states if, someone is injured, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact term, but if someone's injured on a playing surface and it's not negligible by, if we didn't have a 3-foot gaping hole in the middle of a field, and someone just, was playing a regular game and broke their leg and they didn't fall in any uneven ground or that was caused by us, meaning the town, then, it's just a hazard of the game, so to speak. But if we had been doing construction and digging up the irrigation system and left the ground with a gaping hole and didn't mark it off, and it was a playing surface and we rented it, we would be liable. So there is that out there, and I will bring that up with the insurance company and say, at what point is there somewhere that, we need to require insurance, or we don't, we're okay not requiring insurance. They would probably rather see us require insurance every time, but, so I can check on those, and then we'll look at, also, looking at a statement that can go on there about additional costs, as well as looking at a special event permit. I think we can bring it back and have another discussion on it.
On the permit application, the disclaimer says, I further agree to release and save harmless the town of Burlington, its officers, employees, agents, and attorneys from any and all liability or expenses arising out of any incident occurring at the permitted facility. We're kind of covering ourselves there on the bottom line, right? Yeah. The lawyer's looking at me saying no.
Those are on every ticket, entry
At a Bruins
fee,
game?
Yeah. There's ways around everything, Kids get hit with a puck at a Bruins game, that's why they wound up putting the netting up, because it says that in the back of everybody's ticket. But as soon as somebody gets hit, they sue, and they were losing, so that's why they put all the nets up, so.
Yeah.
Exculpatory language like that is not necessarily enforced.
You have to spell that, right?
It's kind of like conundrum. More lies.
Okay, can you come back to us? Do you want to talk next meeting or the meeting after? Next meeting is town meeting night, so can we do the second meeting in January? No, it isn't. We have a meeting.
Town meetings is the end of January.
End or the beginning?
End.
Oh, okay. Do you want to continue the discussion at the next, town meeting's on the 27th.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue it then, on the
Yes,
13th?
yes, that would be good.
We do have a scheduled meeting for December, I have it someplace on the agenda.
23rd, 2 weeks. No, we don't.
We don't have it scheduled.
No.
Okay. So, do you want to continue the discussion with a little more facts?
At January 13th. Yes.
Okay. Everyone good with that?
Sounds good.
All right. Paul, you must like that because you can continue discussion at the planning board all the time, right? No comment.
They tell me to shut up there too, so.
Since we're continuing this, Paul, you cannot talk until the next meeting. How's that?
Till after the next meeting.
You almost made it through, Paul.
No
You did a
more.
great job.
Thank you.
Okay, so the other thing we had on for old business was review the fee for November 30th event, the 7v7 football.
So should we continue it?
No, let's get it. It's on the agenda. That's something totally unrelated.
Okay.
Related, but not related. So the
So I gotta,
so the fee was, just so Brendan, because it was 300 for bathrooms, which isn't really a fee. That's just an expense.
Right. It
um,
it was broken down to, $800 for both fields, so $400 a field, $300 for the accessible portable toilets, and $100 for lights, $50 for each field. So we have to schedule those lights whether they use them or not. You know, there's no one sitting there flipping them on. They're done remotely. The $300 is our cost for portable bathrooms, and the $800 for both fields. It's basically half of what a Tier 5 would get. Their $800 a day per field on the weekend. So we had, you know, prior to the last meeting, had offered to go down, you know, to give them a breakdown, the 800 total, at which point that was declined. So there was an offer for 800 at that point.
Okay, so 400 of it is expenses.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a minimum.
500 is expenses. No,
Get 300.
400 is expenses, yes, sorry. The lights in the bathroom.
Okay, so those are,
Fixed.
given.
Mm-hmm.
They should reimburse
Yes.
us
Yep.
for that. I wouldn't call that a permit fee, I would just call that expenses. The number of 800 would be something if the commission wants to lower that amount for the use of the fields for the charity event. I went to the event. It was really well run. Everyone was well behaved. It was a good event. So and I was impressed by how everyone handled it and how it was run. So
How long did it go on for?
Brendan, was it, they have the permit for,
They had it until, sorry, I think it was 4 o'clock originally was the request, but we had the lights.
9 to 4 would be that.
Sorry. Thought I had it right here. I don't know what I did. I know it's in this
Well, if it was-
section, but it was,
They were done before dark.
Okay, it was 9 to 4. Under the new numbers that we were just looking at, it was $25 per hour. 9 to 4, 7 hours, that'd be $175, as opposed to the $800 that I guess we...
per field,
Oh, that's per field?
yes.
Okay.
So it would be
350
350 instead of 800.
So 750.
350 plus 4, 750 total, which is a little bit less than what they had talked about, but not significantly less.
Correct.
But that's, if they went by a tier 6, that would be, what about what it would?
That's what Brendan is kind of proposing.
Yeah.
We, the commission, can overrule anything.
Was 9 to 4, I mean, might they have been out of there before 4 o'clock even? I'm using 9 to 4 because that's 7 hours, it might have been 6 hours.
I was there in the morning. I was not there at the end. I don't know what time they finished.
They were cleaning up before it was dark. So, if it was $175 per field, so it would be $350 for the field usage,
And
100
400
for
in
the
our
lights,
costs.
because they asked for the lights and they probably went on, right? You turned them on?
Yeah,
So,
they were
Because-
programmed.
yeah, so they
To go on.
programmed to go on. In the porta potties, it's just an expense of $300. So that would be $350 for the use of the fields, $100 for the lights, and $300 for the porta potties,
So 750.
coming
yes.
out to $750.
Now, if it was a chance they were out of there before, if it was 6 hours worth of lights, that's 150, that's 300 plus 350, that's, you'd knock a few bucks off. You said they were cleaning up before dark. I guess maybe you could argue that they'd stop using it then, they were cleaning it up. I don't know. If you want to cut them some slack, you charge them for 6 hours maybe. That's
150.
150 for field, that's 300 total, plus our out-of-pocket. So it knocks them that extra $50 off.
Okay. Brings
I
us
don't know.
down to 700. 300 for the field usage, and lights 100.
400 for expenses.
And 400, yeah.
That's fair.
Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Paul, do you have a comment? I'm testing you. Okay. Someone want to make that motion that the use of the fields would be 300, the lights 100, and the expenses for the porta potties of 300, coming out to a total expense of 700.
And we would reimburse them from the 1,200 that they paid. We would reimburse, and it goes towards the Mass General, whatever, you know.
Yeah, if you vote it to reimburse it, yeah, in whatever their payment form was. I believe it was a credit card.
Okay.
Okay. Brendan, you want to, anyone comments?
No, I'd make the motion, and just for the record, the motion's based on $25 per hour per field, with a 6-hour use day. Just so they don't think we made the number up out of someplace. That's what we're basing it on.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Totally understand where Brendan went with the numbers and giving them that price. I totally understand where he was going with that, and nothing out of line
No.
with that number. He discounted it considerably.
Plus, he was also going on what was in
No,
place
he was
as
going,
of that time.
right, so I think, which we had discussed before, the jump, and then Brendan did what he was supposed to do. So he did what he was supposed to do. Now we're giving them a break. Going forward next year, we will have everything clarified, and it is what it is going forward. So they're getting a break.
And I would also argue that they're a local group, and so
Yeah,
if we're going to
yeah,
give somebody a
absolutely.
break, we give it to a local group. And they're for good cause, and they handled it well, and
Yeah.
they took good care of the property, so.
Yeah, so,
At least I'm certainly a lot more amenable to cutting them some slack than I would of some other groups who aren't as responsible as they've been.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, why don't we vote on the motion for the $700 number for the new permit fee and including expenses, and that the group would be reimbursed $500. Right?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye or make a signal. Aye. Oppose, abstain. Okay, so 500. And we voted to approve the meeting dates. There's no need for an executive session. Next meeting will be January 13th.
Correct.
And hopefully we can come up with a new updated policy on
That would
that.
be our goal, yes.
Do you want to send, we can't deliberate anything by email, but do you want to send it out well in advance so everyone has a chance to interpret it, and if they want to give you any feedback, but not, we can't discuss it? Right. Am I saying it right?
The board members can't discuss it.
Yeah,
We can
but-
discuss it with Brendan.
They can discuss it with Brendan if that's possible, Brendan, maybe right after the first of the year.
Yes.
And way ahead of the normal Friday information that we do it a week or so in advance, so that everyone has a chance, and if someone has a question for you, it would just make the meeting go easier too. If someone has
Okay.
questions, they could reach out to you and, you know, you could argue it, discuss it, modify it for the meeting. Okay. Excellent. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye or motion with a hand. Aye.
I
Opposed?
also say happy holidays. Happy
Opposed,
holidays,
abstained, so
everybody, yes.
500.